Hi, I'm Jan and I'd like to introduce you to painting Cherry Blossom. I'm painting it in my studio. The reason I was painting it in my studio is that the best view I found was standing in the middle of the road, always the way for artists. It's French cherry blossom, not Japanese cherry blossom, but I think it's equally nice. As you can see, it's very windy, which isn't ideal for sketching. Cherry trees often get shaped by their owners. Some of them have been left in their natural shape and others seem to have been clipped. When choosing a tree to paint, you'll also find that there's blossom on the ground, which can add to a picture, or perhaps a darker bush behind. In this case, there's a rhododendron with a darker pink that looks nice. To make the situation manageable, I'm going to select one branch to paint. Painting from underneath is also equally nice, and you could add people sitting on a seat. To start with, I'm going to show you how to paint one sprig of cherry blossom, and then we'll move on to a whole branch. A whole tree full of cherry blossom is very daunting, so what I've done is just picked one little sprig to show you, which I've drawn in pencil, and I'll demonstrate how to fill this in, and then we'll move on to the whole tree and show you how to simplify it but still suggest it's cherry blossom. For the close-up demonstration, I'm using a sketchbook which I've found hidden away. It says it's ideal for sketching in watercolours. It's high quality cartridge paper, so I won't make it too wet. I'm using, just for the big demonstration, I'm using my Faithful watercolours because I know exactly where everyone is. I'm going to do it mostly in Azilian Crimson. And I've got a size 8 synthetic brush with a good point. I've mixed up 2 batches of Azilian Crimson from the pan. One's much stronger than the other. The weaker one will give a much lighter pink. I'm starting from the middle of the flower and just adding a little bit of very weak paint. And just taking it further out with just water and a clean brush, because it is very delicate. Leaving some highlights and slightly stronger in the middle because it's going down to like a cup shape, so there'd be more shadow there where the sun is actually making the outside petals almost white. One on the edge is actually, we're looking at it from the back, but the colour is exactly the same. It's stronger in the middle, weaker to the outsides. So I'll just go round with the brush, pull the water out so there's not a firm edge, and then we'll wait for that to dry. I've put the pencil on so you can see what I'm doing, but I will rub it back in a little while. There's 2 little petals here, it's just opening, and that is white, but the foliage behind is quite pink. They're moving around. Got lots of stamen in the middle here, which is slightly yellow, but it's the pink that goes all the way to the edge. This isn't definitive, it's just a suggestion. So don't worry if you go a bit wobbly. But when you do the whole tree, this will convey the picture. I'm moving down, and it must be the way it's positioned. But this one's got hardly any pink. It almost seems white, but to make it look white, we've got to add some pink and just quickly puddle it down everywhere so it looks lighter than anything else. It might need some blue or grey around the edge so that it still looks white. Cleaning the brush thoroughly. and then going from the outside in. That way I'm not picking up any colour. It's just what's left on the brush hairs. This one's got lots of odd colours. Perhaps the wind's blown something. It's pink in the middle and then going out again. So clean brush and from the outside in. So it all joins up, nothing's carried. And then again, over here, it's the same, the one above it is the same, that the light is making the petals look white, but the ones on the left here are looking slightly pinker. Clean the brush, go from the edge in. Now that's all the flowers covered except the two on the left, which I'm just going to use the wet brush. Now the leaves sometimes look green and sometimes look a bit coppery. I think there's slightly different varieties. Some of the cherry blossom looks like it's got double petals and others are single. You have to bear in mind, learn to look at the one you're actually doing. So I'm just going to put a few leaves in here just so that we can see where we've got to. The green has actually got a lot of the red in it. And I'm going to do the leaf the way it grows. It's got a pattern on it which I can put in shortly. And what makes it look like cherry blossoms, it's got a zigzag top but straight sides. So I've done that. I'm going gently because of the paper I'm using, but it's got parallel lines. So I'll just suggest them because it's wet, it'll find its own way, and they are parallel, so make sure that you are matching them up. You only have to suggest them, you don't have to do anything else. And then some of the stems are red and some are green. Moving on to the other side, it may be that the sun's catching it, but they do look more coppery. So what I'm going to do is add some burnt sienna to the green mix. Just give that a moment and then put in the lines. And same with the one above it. And let that dry. It's just giving a suggestion. You don't want hard edges everywhere. The colour behind an object will change its appearance. The leaves are against the sky. the petals are against the sky in some cases and then against the trunk of the tree. So I'll just put some sky in and show you. Just putting some warm blue down. I've put a warm blue in the sky and just put a dark brown made from a very dark grey, Payne's grey, and a warm brown burnt sienna to show the bark, but there will be more detail going on the bark. And I've just put another coat of green on the leaf, and you can see that the changing of colours affects the way you view the petals. I'm just going to put a bit more bark in to show the area of the blossom, and then the dark background will act as a foil. I've got quite a well loaded brush here, so I want to show that it's in shadow from the flowers. And going round to show the curve of the branch. If you look at trees, you'll find that they have moss and lichen and all sorts of things on. You have to look for different colours. Well, this top leaf is catching the sun, so what I've done is used a dark brown mix, and I've just dropped, while it's still wet, some yellow ochre in it, which has just given it a nice zing. I'm now adding the sky that you can see between the branches, which will again add to the contrast. I'm now returning to the flowers, or the blossom, and I've got a very runny Azilium Crimson and a very strong one. So I'm going to go in with the strong one just in the centre of the flower, because it is quite deep and in shade, and it'll highlight the lighter bits. I don't want a solid line, so I'm just putting the brush gently in the water and pulling the paint out so that it's got a natural line, not like a line in the middle of the road. Some of the petals are coming straight up and others are a layer behind them, like layers of a skirt, so they're darker again. So I'm just looking round, and I'm going to do the very dark ones and leave the light ones out. Doesn't matter how accurate you are, you're just trying to convey the idea. There's like a shadow going through. It's probably the shadow of the leaves. I'll just put some water again just to give a natural edge. And then flower down here, it's very dark again in the centre. They will have some yellow in the centre, but it's barely visible. And this one down here. Now, to make the other petals look white, I've not got to paint the petals, but perhaps the negative area around them. So I'm going to get some very dark paint and just go up to them very close. And then I'll use the water again to let that down. Don't need gallons of water, just a tiny bit on the brush is enough to give a natural edge. Just finishing going round the petals. This shows you how to paint Blossom, and we will now move on to painting a whole branch on watercolour paper. For the Cherry Blossom, I'm using a different paper that's slightly smoother. I've drawn out the blossom in pencil so that you can see what I'm going to paint. And I've got a bigger palette, so I've actually stirred up quite a puddle, and I've used turquoise and cobalt blue. Just mix it together. Just give a pale wash rather than the white page. Because this area on the left is very big, I'm actually wetting it first, which I think is the only way I'm going to get coverage. Just means the paint will drift more easily on the paper. I don't want a hard line, so I'll go over here as well. Go back into the paint. As you can see, the paint is flowing in the water. Just rake it around a little bit. All I'm trying to do is to lose the white page, which will make the painting look nicer. Whilst this is drying in a minute, I'll show you the colours we're going to use for the Cherry Blossom. Sometimes when you go to an art shop, there's all sorts of odd colours for doing specialist flowers in all different pinks, but you can't beat starting with crimson. So we'll have a look at what we've got. I've just had a look in my paint drawer, and I've got a wide variety of pinks or potential pinks. I've got Zillion Crimson, Vermilion Hue, Windsor Red, Purple, Purple Madder, Cobalt Violet, Scarlet Lake, Genuine Rose and Rose Madder, which seems far too many, but sometimes you do need them for certain flowers. So what I'm going to do is show you how to mix it. To demonstrate how you can do all the different shades of pink for the Cherry Blossom, I've got Zillion Crimson, which I'm putting down. I'm just going round the edge of it with some water. I'm now going for yellow. I'm not entirely sure which yellow it is, but a yellow. Then a purple. When you've had a pan for a while and the labels come off, you can't always tell what shade it is unless you check a colour chart. I think it's probably chrome yellow. Then I'm going to add blue. And bright red. And just water. Now I'm going to try an orange. You can see that they're getting variations here, so that even though I've got all these different colours, I probably don't need them all, but they're nice if you're doing a specimen flower and you happen to have one. This Rose Madder looks like it'd be nice for a skin tone as well. I've now swapped to a smaller brush, which is a number 4 Sable and Crimson. Very wet crimson, very puddly, so it's diluted, and just gently go in. Now you always try and paint things the way they grow, so they're growing from a stalk and they're growing outwards. So my brush strokes are reflecting that. I'm changing direction here to do another one. don't have to be that accurate. It's a question of conveying the scene. See, we've already got a degree of pink, but these will have a couple of coats of paint on to give the petal idea. Now I'm now moving into the middle. Try not to smudge anything. All go onto the blue. And I'll continue doing this and come back to you because it's there's quite a lot to put in here. I've moved, I think it was a number 4 brush around to give an indication of where the cherry blossom is, and every now and again I put a little yellow dot to show the middle of the flower. The crimson I put down with various colours around the outside, yellow, orange, purple, blue and just water, you can see is dried to lots of different shades. So that's very useful to go back and just tint things. I put the sky in on wet paper to give better coverage. I've given a suggestion of the blossom with a few yellow centres. You see the blossom first. The blossom is the picture, so any twigs and branches are going to be secondary. So I've left some gaps and I'm going to put a few branches in and then go back and emphasise the cherry blossom. I've mixed up a very dark brown, hoping that with a lot on the brush I can get most of the twigs done in one coat. Always draw things the way they're growing, and these going out obviously from a central trunk. Doesn't matter if you're a bit wobbly, you can always stick cherry blossom on top. And there's a bit of a tangle up here, so I'm not entirely sure which way they're going. But it just gives a little bit of suggestion to it. Tells the brain that you're looking at a branch. With cherry blossom, the blossom comes before the leaves, so there will be a hint of a curled leaf somewhere. Going back to the blossom, I'm only using Azilian Crimson at the moment. I will put a little bit of mid-purple in a while, but I'm just going to take the brush for a dance across the page and just put in a few hints of where there might be shadow. Try and keep the brush moving in all directions, otherwise it'll end up looking like something else. I'm keeping the brush on the move all the time, and you have to remember that each flower is circular and it's got lots of layers, so it has to be lots of brush strokes to convey that over the paper. I've changed rooms to finish this picture. I've got north lights. Sometimes if you're in one room on for 1 month, the light changes, you get lots of window bar shadows and things. But it's a size 8 brush with a good point, and I'm just keeping the brush moving. I'm not stopping. I'm taking it for a dance, and I'm just doing swirls to emphasise the frilly cherry blossom. So I'm just going to do it down here so it's easy for you to see. Just dancing the brush. And I've just got Azilian Crimson with a little bit of ultramarine. Whilst it's drying, I've got a flat synthetic brush. And this is very good if you want to remove a little bit of paint and go back to nearly the white paper or lighten everything. So what I'm going to do is just tickle some of the blossom I've painted just to give an odd white highlight. Masking fluid would be too severe in this case. It wouldn't look subtle. So just give it a little tickle. Clean the brush. You can see how much I've got off by the colour that's coming off on the tissue. So it's very little, but it just makes a difference. If you're not sure about the rubbing back with the flat brush, I'll show you an example. I've got a piece of sketching paper here. I like sketching people if I see them about. This is obviously pre-COVID. I'll do a block on the back, and when it's dry I'll show you how to rub it out. I've just painted a rectangle of crimson and making it really dense, and when it's dry I'll show you how to rub it back. To make the pink blossom look pink, you can add blue or purple, yellow, red or orange, and anything will highlight the pink. Also, I've rubbed back rather than use latex or masking fluid, which is more appropriate, more delicate. So I'm just going to show you how to do that. I've got a flat brush, synthetic one. Just put it on the paint that's already dried, and then get a tissue, and it's given a light area. You can also just dab the corner, just rotate the brush slightly. All you're doing is lifting the paint. And you see you've got a light area. It's quite useful for doing delicate things like blossom. So I've now got the finished cherry blossom hanging from the tree. There's not a lot of detail because it's probably 3 or 4 meters in the air, so you're not seeing it as though it's in a vase in front of you. Remember to subscribe to my channel and give a thumbs up tick, and I hope you've really enjoyed watching the cherry blossom being painted.